Welcome to Toot Your Own Horn, episode 8 with Tony Negron. Welcome, Tony. I am so glad you are here.
Hi, Lisa. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to talk all things clarinet and kind of dive into the work.
Oh, I am just so happy you are here. And it's wonderful to have a clarinetist from Florida who is such an active musician and educator and interested in sharing his story. How in the world did you get started playing the clarinet?
Well, that is a great question, and I've been very excited to see where everybody's journey has kind of taken them. So I started playing the clarinet in the sixth grade, and in Florida, that's typically when you'll begin in a beginning band program. And at that time, I went to Eisenhower Middle School. Mr. Smith, who I owe so much to, I still keep in contact with him. He was just a phenomenal educator and inspirational person. And I kind of fell into the clarinet in an odd way because they were running an after school band program at the time. And so it was kind of like an elective that you could do, like instead of going to like child daycare, basically. You could
Oh,
sign up and go to band class. So I was like, okay, well, I like the recorder. Let's go to band class. And he had these posters, and we all know these posters in elementary music rooms and middle school band rooms that are like, these are all the woodwind instrument poster. Here's the brass
right,
instrument poster. Here's the percussion instrument. So,
right.
he goes through his spiel about, okay, you're going to pick something, we're going to try something. So why don't you just, I was actually late to the class. And so I remember he said, just go to the poster and you just pick out an instrument and then we'll just start with that today. We'll just figure it out and we'll kind of test some things. If it works, it's great. If not, I'll guide you. So I went over to the poster and I was so excited because I saw an English horn, but on a poster, they all look the same size. So you
Right,
don't really know. So I was
right.
like, this is the one English horn. I speak great English. I'm sure this will be perfect. And he was like, well, nobody really plays that one. He was like, that's something that's an acquired thing. What about the bass clarinet? So I was like, okay, yeah, sure. Let's try the bass clarinet. So he had kids working on like a pass off system. And so he's guiding me to get an instrument from the cabinet. And we're looking and looking. And he's like, I'm so sorry. I don't have any bass clarinets, but I have this alto clarinet. And he opens up the case and he said, how does this look? And I was like, well, it looks kind of like an English horn. So I don't know anything about it. So let's do the alto clarinet.
That's
So pretty much
hysterical.
every day after school, I just loved it. And so how it works in Florida is the first half of the year you go through what's called a wheel program. So you like do 2 weeks of band, 2 weeks of orchestra, 2 weeks of choir,
Oh,
2 weeks of Spanish, 2 weeks. So you're trying all the different electives and then
oh,
you choose in January.
oh, that's kind of cool.
Yes, and it's great exposure. And how I was doing band was I was doing it again as that after school program instead of going to like childcare.
Right.
So the whole semester I played alto clarinet. I finished book one. So then I chose band for my like elective course during the day.
Yeah.
And Mr. Smith was like, okay, I'm very excited. You're on book two. They're all going to be starting book one. Nobody really plays the alto
Alto
clarinet.
clarinet. That's, I was going to say, were they even playing the alto clarinet then?
And he said, and you've become a really great alto clarinet player, Tony. I think it's time that we look at something else. So why don't you play B flat clarinet in the
Oh.
after school program? Because now the wheel was done. So
Now,
they
was
used the
he really
clarinet.
good at getting kids to do this like you, like just kind of
Oh,
keeping them around and
yeah.
like getting them to just like play whatever he felt like getting them to play?
Yes, and Mr. Smith was just
Wow.
so inspirational, and I mean everybody loves him, and he's still teaching now, and he's an amazing guy and inspirational person, and so I was like, okay, I can play the B flat clarinet because now he had clarinets because the wheel was over. Because when you're in
Right.
the wheel, you only play trumpet or clarinet because
Right.
2 weeks. So he was like, so I have these clarinets. Why don't you play clarinet? And then in the after school band, why don't you just pick something else to play, and then you can start back in book one again and learn another instrument. So he and I talked, and I was like, well, what do you think would be the best one? And he said, well, lots of single reed players love to play saxophone. And I said, oh, I would love to play saxophone. He was like, wait, the saxophone is the easiest instrument. You are somebody who needs a challenge. And I think that you would be great at the flute. And I was like, I don't know, flute. It's kind of a girly instrument. And, at that time, that's
Yeah.
a big thing. And he was like, no, I think that you can be really incredible. And this will be a great life skill if you ever decide to be a musician. And I remember this is seventh grade Tony. And I'm
Oh
like,
gosh.
I'm not going to be a musician. But okay, Mr. Smith, you think I should play the flute? Let's play the flute. And that actually ended up being one of the best things to happen to me because now I do all these musical gigs and I never had any formal flute training. I just got it from Mr. Smith starting in the seventh grade because I finished the alto clarinet and then played the B flat clarinet. And then I was in jazz band and I got to play the tenor sax. And the following year, I made all state for the first time. And I was Mr. Smith's first student to do that. And it was like a big deal at the school. And it just really set me, he as an individual really set me on a path to love music. I mean, really love music. And he was just an
It's always
inspirational
one
person.
person, isn't it? It's always somebody that brings that spark to you and makes you want to do it.
Yes. And when I left eighth grade and I went to high school, across the street, he ended up leaving Eisenhower and then he moved up north to be closer to family and they changed schools. And I still keep in touch with him to this day. And it's crazy because I went to high school and, I continued doing clarinet, still played a little bit of flute. And then I decided, you know what, I'm going to go to school to be an architectural engineer. That's what I really want to do. And I got a full ride to LSU, FSU, and USF.
Mhm.
And when I was trying to decide what I wanted to do, USF has a wonderful engineering program.
Wow.
I was like, you know what, I'm going to do engineering, but play clarinet in the concert bands. And I got
Mhm.
a small scholarship to do that. And this is where the uncanny story of everything really takes place because I feel like it's always one person. And
Mhm.
so the three people in my life, the first was Mr. Smith. And then this second person, his name's Tom Frownshoe, and he played the French horn.
Mhm.
So how USF used to do their kind of like orientations. They've changed how they do it now. But basically, what happened was it was an overnight orientation. The first day, you go to school and you take like a campus wide tour and you walk the whole thing, and it's a massive campus.
Yeah.
Um, then you stay overnight in the dorms and they purposely pair you with somebody that's not in your major. So I was doing architectural engineering
Mhm.
and I go to the dorm and you meet your person and you go to the parties and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so the person in the dorm was Tom Fronshu and I had just met him in January at Allstate because he was
Oh,
first year French horn, I was first year clarinet.
oh,
And he was
cool.
like, how did we get paired together? And I said, oh, I'm not a music major. I'm doing architect. And he was like, no, Tony, you should be playing clarinet. And I was like, no, 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 no. Musicians don't make money. I need to do something that's going to pay the bills. And Tom was like, no, man, you are so amazing. So the whole night I hung out with Tom and we went to the party and everything. And so then overnight, the next day, you got separated to go to your individual orientation, like School
Mhm.
of Music, School of Engineering.
Right.
So then Tom was going to the music one, and then I had run into some other all-state people that were going to school for music, and he was like, you know what, you should just come with us, and you can go to the orientation for engineering later. I was like, I guess I could do that. I mean, I can always schedule it for next week. Okay, fine. So I go to the orientation for music, and I'm like,
Sounds like
wow,
a distraction. He's pulling you in.
yes. And I was like, I didn't know that there was like theory courses and history course. I didn't know any of those things
Yeah.
existed. I thought it was just like you were in band, you were in marching band, you took lessons, but that was
Right.
it. And so then I'm like learning all about it. And I was like, you know what? Okay, let's see how the first year goes. I'm going to sign up for marching band. I was doing my prelim math classes and engineering courses. And then at the end of the year, I was like, you know what? All my friends are in band. All my friends are music majors. I'm not really meeting anybody in the engineering world. And as much as I love math and architecting, um, I remember I called my mom and stepdad and I said, I'm kind of thinking about being a music teacher and maybe switching majors. And my stepdad said, he's a substance abuse counselor. And he said, I used to do things that paid a lot more money than this. And if you really love what you do, and I
Yeah.
love helping people and I love counseling, you should do what you want to do.
Right.
And my mom was like, oh yeah, of course, Tony, whatever you want to do. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to change my major. So I switched and I went through all the courses, got my undergrad in music education. Um, and then now is the person number three. And so at that time, they had hired an adjunct clarinetist to USF. He's now the full time professor there, and it's Calvin Falwell. He plays in the Sarasota Orchestra. And he's just become such a great friend. And when he was hired, it was my internship year.
Hmm.
And he asked, oh, wow, what are you going to be doing after college? And I said,
Yeah.
oh, I'm going to be an elementary music teacher. I love young kids. I love those concepts. As much as I would love to do something like high school and teenagers, hormones and things really just aren't it for me. So
Hmm. For
I
sure.
knew I wanted elementary. And he was like, no, you should go off to grad school. And I was like, oh, I don't think I'm that good to go off to grad school. I don't think that's really for me. And then tragically, and everybody has despair stories. My mom ended up passing away from cancer.
Oh, I'm
And
so sorry.
so I was thinking like, okay, well, no, I'm going to get this job. Well, Calvin said I should audition for grad schools. So then I was in this weird limbo. And he was like, it's unfortunate what happened to your family, but is there anything really holding you back in Tampa anymore? Or is this an opportunity to go
Yeah.
like explore yourself? And I said, you know what? You're right. Let's give it a try. And so I auditioned for grad school. I got a full ride to Duquesne University and a full
Oh,
ride to
that's
Carnegie
awesome.
Mellon. And I ended up deciding on Duquesne University, which is where Ron Samuel's second clarinet at the Pittsburgh Symphony plays.
Yeah.
And the whole thing that brings it all to fruition is that my mom's family is all from Pittsburgh. So when Duquesne came up, I just felt like this is my mom telling me this is what I need to be doing.
Yeah.
And I decided to go. I got my master's in clarinet performance and I got a great internship with the National Repertory Orchestra in Colorado. I was their personnel manager intern for a summer. And then I came back to Tampa and I started my own business like you. I started teaching private lessons. And then I taught elementary music in Hillsborough County Public Schools for 8 years. And it was really up until recent that I decided to have a shifting career.
Yeah.
And I left the classroom and now I work at Hillsborough Community College and Ecker College in St. Pete. I have a private studio of about 50 students that I teach weekly. I've inherited this nonprofit arts organization called the Florida Wind Band, which is where I'm doing these chamber concerts, full band concerts, fundraising, um, and getting to like network with other musicians and do creative projects. And that's kind of my entire story of where it began with Mr. Smith, Tom Frownshoe pulling me out of orientation, and then Calvin pushing me off to grad school.
Hmm. It's an amazing story, really. I mean, it's if somebody was listening to this and they were like, "That is so amazing," I would consider playing a wind instrument. What would you say to them to try to encourage them to act now, to do it right now?
I think that you can do anything that brings you joy, and you can make a living if you're willing to work. And if you love it, it will really never feel like work. And that was great advice. And I know we've heard that since the beginning of time, but that really did resonate with me when my stepdad encouraged me to do that. And that has always been kind of my mantra. And I have lots of students that go off to college and they're like, I don't think I want to be a musician, but I want to keep playing music. And I said, yes, you should. There are lots of avenues for adult learners in community bands, community organizations, clarinet choirs, which is actually on one of the projects that I'm hoping to start here in Tampa is a community-based clarinet choir. There's a pretty strong one called the Licorice Sticks in Orlando. Rick Kissinger does that, and I think he is so incredible. It's a great concept, and it's such a wonderful platform for people to continue doing music without having to do it full time.
Right.
And I know we've had some light conversations about the industry, but that's where I feel we should be encouraging people and we should be encouraging them not to put their instrument down, and they can be doctors and lawyers and dentists and accountants and have a social experience and a meaningful thing that we do together as a community, and those things should exist for people. And I think that that is where the market is, and it's not a market for how do I say this? It's not a market for money making. It's a market for spirit.
Social spirit and social
Like,
engagement and improved communication and improved connection, because it really is the fastest connector of heart to head. And so if you're someone who wants to be better in touch with yourself, or you're someone who wants to make great progress in your career or just with your ability to speak and think, it really does great stuff for you, right? Because it's such a great way to synthesize, right? It has so much self-efficacy in it. It just helps you go forward so much faster. There's something incredibly powerful about learning how to make a beautiful sound that is more than just the human voice,
oh, for sure.
right? And it's just a very powerful thing to work to learn to create that that sound. And then when the sound is pleasing to you, and then you can connect notes to it to make music, there's just something about it that makes you just feel so powerful, I think. And that power then makes you speak differently and think differently. And I've seen adults change when they play just for little bits of time, right? And I just think it's very powerful because it expands your brain. It's so, 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 so good for you. But what you were talking about earlier before, about your arts organization and some of the wonderful productions you're doing, it just strikes me that those are also modern day instrument experimental potential zoos, right? Because
Oh,
they offer so much potential to invite the audience in afterwards for a, come stroke the harp, or come try some clarinet, or come try the trumpet, or come learn about this at, you can, maybe this is a good time to start.
yes, and and I think sometimes, adults, sometimes what I hear from adults is, I'm too old. It's too late.
Mhm,
And that's where I don't feel like there are avenues to help support that.
mhm,
I have an incredible student, and I know that she would not be upset if I spoke about her at all. But her name is Sherry, and she is 72 years old.
mhm,
She worked in HR, and she was in big headhunting companies.
mhm,
So she was definitely in corporate America for her entire career.
mhm,
And then she lived in Hunter's Green area, which is where I was teaching elementary music. And then I was playing clarinet with the Florida Wind Band. So she had retired and decided, I have always wanted to play the clarinet because I'm Jewish and I want to learn traditional Jewish music. So
awesome.
she bought a clarinet, came to a Florida Wind Band concert, and I will never forget. She came up after me, or after the concert, up to me, and she said, I want to take lessons. And I said, this is great. Here's my number. And she said, I am, at that time, she was like, I am 69 and I have always wanted to do this. And now after coming to this concert, this is what I want to do. And so I told her a little bit about me, and she was like, oh, I live right behind Hunter's Green Elementary. You could literally come to my house right after school. And so I've been teaching her ever since then, and she absolutely loves the clarinet. She does never misses a lesson. She is on the clock. She's always practicing, and I just want more people to have that confidence to say it's okay to try something new, and learning can happen at any time. It doesn't have to be middle school and high school. Um, so that's really what I want all adults to know, is it really is never too late. And there are great instructors out here and great opportunities for community bands and networking opportunities and social experiences that are different than the 5 o'clock happy hour after you've worked your desk job or your accounting job. I think that there's lots of opportunities for that.
It's such a joyful experience to work with adults because they discredit themselves because they don't think they really know anything, but they have a ton of life experience. And that
Yeah.
life experience carries them really far when it comes to connecting the dots and being able to grow musically quickly.
Oh, for sure, making the connections, and then of course, as we all know, the intrinsic motivation to actually practice.
Right.
Adults already have that, which as a teacher, that is like striking gold. It's like I know they are going to practice because they know
They
what this is
want
all about.
to.
They
They're
want-
here for the right reason. I don't want your tech. I want you to do the work. Yay.
Yes.
Right. It's
Oh my gosh,
totally true.
that's so
It's
funny.
funny. It's
Because
really, really
those are the students that we're looking for. This is what we want.
so adults, all you adults out there, come join us. It's really fun. The water's warm.
Yes.
It'll be just fine. Come on in.